I have one I have to do that with too. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome.
Hey.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Great. How are you, Larkin?
Good. I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm going to make sure we're up and running on live like I always do.
Okay.
So make sure we're running. Welcome, everyone. This is, I guess, is this our last broadcast for the year?
No, I think we got
No.
one more.
I think we got one more. So this is our second to last broadcast for 2023. Let it be known the year we got started. And then
Growing pains. It's a great example of, the title.
yes, growing pains. That should be what we call this next year. Okay, well, anyway, that should be the name of our show, right? Growing pains. That's perfect. But then everybody, our last show for 2023 will be on the 26th. So if we both are have enough energy to be here, we'll be here with you on the 26th. So
Right.
how are you, Chris? And what are we talking about today? Well, I make sure we're live on YouTube here.
Okay. I'm doing wonderful. I'm excited to be here as always. It's a great honor and privilege to share and to be able to do what we do. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity, as always. And the topic, or the title of the show anyway, is how to create the happy, healthy, and harmonious lifestyle you desire. Coming into the end of the year, a lot of us are reflecting on the year and, what went our way, what didn't go our way, maybe, and trying to prepare for the upcoming year. Because our egos love to achieve things.
Oh my gosh, perfectly put. Perfectly put.
And that's kind of, I think, the cosmic joke, right? Like to create the ultimate lifestyle, the ultimate life that we want to live, is really just accept where we are, and then make conscious choices to move towards the things that we feel like maybe are lacking a little bit, or we'd like to have more of, or but it always comes from acceptance. Whether we did the work or we didn't do the work, or it didn't work the way we wanted it to, or any of that thing, when we're responsible for our effect, we can change it. When the cause is outside of us, whether that be in a relationship, or the government, or the environment, or anything like that, we're kind of co-creating that. We're kind of working with our own energy, but at the same time, there's outside forces that are also having that effect. We can do all the things for the environment. We can ride a bike, and we cannot purchase and consume a lot of consumables, and we can recycle, and we can do all that stuff, and that's playing our part. But industrial waste and all the other things that are beyond our control, we have to find some level of acceptance that we can't control everything. And I found that to be helpful for me to create happiness. Because there's always things to fix, right? That's our growth. That's what we're growing towards. How to, we found in COVID, right, when the lockdowns happened, that the planet kind of started coming back. The animals started coming back. The water started cleansing themselves. Those types of things. Well, that's going to happen naturally, because that's what Pachamama, Mother Nature, does. As long as we're not polluting it. The same thing with our bodies. When we are eating a proper diet, whatever that diet might be, and have healthier habits, our health naturally occurs. It's only when we fall from health that we realize that we're not healthy. Or we do something out of the ordinary. If we walk everywhere and, for example, and never run, well, we might not ever get winded. I was having a conversation with my dad the other day about infrared saunas, and how good it is, for our health to detox and that type of thing. And he said, well, yeah, you just got to go out there and work and sweat. And I'm like, that's one way to do it, Dad. But not everybody has a farm. Not everybody is in the physical conditioning to do manual labor extensively enough or hard enough and consistent enough, for a 30 to 40 minute sweat. And even though it's cold now, you'd have to work even harder to sweat. In the summertime, you don't have to work as hard to sweat, but in the wintertime, and if you've ever gone hiking or anything like that in the winter, and you're all bundled up, chances are, as you're exerting some energy, you're sweating to some degree. So, what are your thoughts on that, Larkin?
Well, I absolutely agree with you. Something you just said actually reminded me of something that I focus a lot on in my coaching, and I know that you do too. And this is something that I think a lot of our modern great teachers are trying to reiterate, because, as time goes by, throughout history, every 10 years, you have a new group of people that have become aware of these things like that we're talking about, or any really, important aspects of life. And then, every generation you have that happening. Every 100 years or so, you have people coming to the forefront, really becoming famous and talking about these things. Mm-hmm. And, this is one of the things, like, you hear Abraham Hicks talk about, you hear, Eckhart Tolle talk about, all these our modern day teachers talk about in different ways. But what I hear you saying essentially is, it's like, be the cork, we are like the wood in the water. We will naturally float, as Abraham Hicks says, we'll naturally float if we're not pushing ourselves down. Mm-hmm. And, Eckhart Tolle refers to it in terms of, he's talking about our thoughts, being our consciousness, being aware of the observer behind our thoughts, acceptance, surrender and acceptance, which I focus on a lot with my clients, but it's just another way of saying that, right? It's like, then we have in martial arts, I was always taught about effortless effort. Mm-hmm. And how a lot of people practicing martial arts, you learn effortless effort. And when you are practicing that, it's not what the person who is trying to make things happen or is believing their thoughts and believing their ego. It's not the same approach they would take. So a person very caught up in their ego, very trying to make everything happen, very stuck in their thoughts, it's going to look to them like a person practicing effortless effort is just blah, is doing nothing, has no idea what they're doing, isn't ever going to make it. Maybe they appear lazy to them, or like they don't care. And the truth is, my friends, the bottom line here is things are not what they appear. They will appear as your ego sees them, right? We sense and perceive things according to our state of consciousness as a human being at the time. And that doesn't mean just our eternal conscious state of being. It means our state of consciousness. So I've always told my clients, make your state of consciousness your number one priority, because you will live and experience life. You will make choices that lead to your future according to your state of consciousness, mm-hmm. Period. And that's a lot of, essentially what you're saying, but there's so many different ways of looking at it. So I think people jump around from approach to approach. Thank you guys for your feedback. Approach to approach, not realizing that for me, my life journey I've had a very intact cosmic memory. And one of the things I've done my whole life is I have gone back and studied all these different forms of religion and philosophy and all this. And when your conscious self knows them and remembers them cosmically, it comes back real quick. Like it's just a refresher, right? So for me, it's like, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I already knew that. And then you learn it a lot more quickly, which, which a lot of you can do. A lot of you come with a lot of this already pre-packed in your cosmic memory. And so when we do this, then we can move forward more quickly, and we can understand, okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be this belief system or that religion. For some of you, you might need that. It doesn't really matter. You can choose whatever you want in this life. But this concept of, and I think this is important moving forward into 2024, if you want things to be less of a struggle, remember, struggle comes from your mind. Things aren't actually a struggle. You make them a struggle. If you don't want to suffer, remember, the suffering happens within your mind. And people say, no, I really am suffering. I'm on the street. I'm in debt. I'm depressed. I'm sick. Okay, but your perception and what's going to perpetuate that is in here. Mm-hmm. When we want to create transformation, we have to acceptance and surrender, which I will include forgiveness in this, because a lot of you need to apply forgiveness in order to create space for 2024. But to create space, to create a flow, to remove blocks, guys, it's not what you think it is, and it's not what you want to hear. It's simple. It's acceptance and surrender. It is always acceptance and surrender. And my journey, well over 30 years ago, when I wanted to understand, how do I transform my situation? Because I saw all these adults around me talking about changes they wanted to make, and none of them were doing it. And a few of them would do it. And I'm thinking, how are the ones that are doing it? Right. Well, it started with their power of choice, and their power of choice had to change. How did the power of choice came? Well, they were accepting where they were and what was happening and making a choice from there. And then I discovered, as I got into coaching, so we recreate our past. The more we don't let go of our past and we're trying to fix our past, the more we recreate it, because you don't go where you want to go. You go where your focus is. You go where your energy is. So I think Chris and I came at this at two very different angles today, but we both innately, without even intending to, came up with our topic today as being basically, we want to take, since we're going to have this in another session before next year, to help you guys see if you really want to create a new year next year, if you really want transformation, to take how can we help you to take a healthy look at 2023 and assess your goals, your success, if you want to call it that, your accomplishments, your growth and transformation, and your evolution. How can you move that forward into 2024 and set yourself up for success? And although it does not sound fun, the ultimate truth always is acceptance and surrender must become a way of life, because that is the key, guys. Literally, you can't have transformation without it. If you want things to change in your life, you have to make acceptance and surrender, which includes forgiveness, as a way of life. And that has to be a part of this process, because what happens is that is the ultimate of taking you into, okay, I'm present in accepting what is, and where can we move forward from? We can only ever move forward from the now. So when we are in acceptance, we're not denying the now, as Eckhart Tolle says, right? And if Eckhart Tolle didn't exist, I wouldn't be quoting him. I mean, I'd be saying this anyway, but it's because it's the truth, and he has channeled in the ultimate truth. Right. So when you guys are journaling, or whatever rituals or ceremonies or habits, practices you have for your goals for next year, if we want to call them goals, don't forget this part. Most people are, they're my next goals. And I failed this year and I sucked and I'm going to do it again next year. And but you can't do that. That's all a waste.
Right.
If you're not like, okay, you know what? I am where I am. It is what it is. And it's okay. And that forgiveness part, Chris, I think is where, surrender and forgiveness, those two words rub the ego the wrong way.
Yeah.
I think that's what holds people up.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, I can use myself as an example of that plenty of times, and, then I got really good at surrendering, and then I got complacent, right? Because I surrendered without, like replacing it with something else. And I think, one of the techniques, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were talking about quitting smoking. It's one of those things that's on my radar right now, and it's, it reminded me of when I quit, 7-8 years ago, or whatever it was, and how easy it was for me to do it at the time because I did self-hypnosis. And I wasn't trying to combat myself or the cleansing of my lungs or, any of the other things. I was in a state of gratitude and acceptance that I had done that damage to my body, and I was allowing the stuff to come up and, whatever, instead of going, oh my God, I can't believe, I was just like, thank you, body, for healing me, and it was really easy to let go. And then, in 2022, I found myself in a relationship, and she wanted to smoke. And so I surrendered my own personal health, and not being a smoker, and saying, yeah, I'll walk with you because I don't think that it's going to be an issue for me. I'm not going to get addicted to it again, because it's not something that resonates with me. Well, guess what? That was my ego, and making it okay, to let go of my own standards, of how I wanted to live, to appease my relationship, to make it easier, to prove to her that I was willing to go through the trials and tribulations with her, to prove what a good guy I was and how loving I was, and, how I was willing to be supportive, even when it was something that ultimately was against what I wanted in life. Because what I said was, I don't mind smoking with you, but I don't want it to become a habit again. And I had all these boundaries around, okay, well, I'm only going to smoke at home, and I'm not going to take them in the car. I'm not going to do it outside. We'll only do it at this, whatever. And then once I started creating that habit again, it just got easier to go, I really remember when I used to enjoy driving with a cigarette. Okay, so I'm going to smoke in the car now, and next thing I know, that came back. And it did. It created resentment within me, because I abandoned my own self, my own stuff. And this year has been a great year for me to really reflect back on, who it is that I am and what I want and how I want to show up for myself, how I want to show up for my family and friends and my clients, and even those around me. I think I hear so much of this now, Larkin, and I don't know if I'm sure you probably do too, but to live, to live a spiritual life, you got to meditate, you got to have crystals, you got to have all these things. You can't work a normal day job. You're going to have to be an energy healer. You're going to have to be, some kind of psychic or tarot reader, or, that's the only way you can live a spiritual life. And that's just not true.
No, it's all bullshit.
Yeah, we all live a spiritual life every freaking day. And it's how we reflect our vibration, our thoughts, our feelings, our actions, our behaviors, all that. That is our spirituality. It doesn't matter the context or the way that we can relate to it, or it's just our ego's way of being able to locate itself in the cosmic bliss of everything that's always infinite possibilities, right? Like that's consciousness. It's always manifesting in all these ways. And it's interesting. This weekend I had a friend come down to do some ceremony. There was a channeling session that we were a part of, and they said, oh, you guys were brother and sister in many lives. It was channeled through Mother Mary, just to be specific. And it'd be really beneficial for you guys to anchor your centers together. So we're like, okay, well, we'll do that. We'll, energetically do that. And, we'll bring stuff. And so we started on that process. Well, when she got here that day, she told me, she's like, hey, I channeled. And I'll be the first one to admit, there's the only time I was doing really well financially was when I was doing the darkest stuff, when I was in the adult industry, when I was drug addict, selling drugs, doing all that. That was my most abundant time. So I had the most cash, and that's always been a kind of in the back of my head, a challenge for me. Right. And, why can't I, get through this stuff or whatever. So anyway, she told me, she's like, when you came to the center the other day, I got a message from Saint Francis, and I'm not very aware of this. This is just what she's telling me and what I captured. But when Saint Francis, when you would make a vow to walk that path, it was of extreme poverty. Like you weren't allowed to own anything because that made you truly free, like no attachments. You could accept exchange for food, exchange for like housing for the night or something like that, but extreme. And she's like, you were one of those friars and you took that vow, and that's why it's affecting you in all these lives. So I was told by St. Francis, we have to do this unbinding ceremony, because you did follow through with that oath through multiple lives now, but it's no longer serving you. And I'm like, well, 2 weeks ago, I always said, past lives, whatever. I'm in the now, like I didn't want to connect to that, but it was a really powerful ceremony. And it almost tricked my consciousness, tricked my ego, right? Like it gave me an alibi of why things haven't worked up to this point, right? And I'm like, oh, well, now I got this ceremony and I did this unbinding, and now it's all going to be different. And it is, because we're always moving forward.
Right.
But if we're looking backwards all the time, like, man, this didn't work out. This didn't happen. This person said they were going to do this. They didn't follow through. I said I was going to do this and I didn't follow through, and we're just constantly in that repetitive loop. It's really hard to show up in the present moment and just change your patterning of your daily, routine. One of the blessings that I've had, or however you want to look at it, was going through the personal development stuff through my teenage years, and into my 20s and 30s before I really found more spiritual text. But it broke it down really simple for me. You have 24 hours. Everybody has the same 24 hours in a day. The only thing that separates you is how to use it.
Absolutely.
I mean, this is just really that simple. So if I sit and I really work on my internal self, I'm meditating, I'm feeling the feelings, I'm doing somatic releases, I'm doing breath work, and doing all that stuff to make my energy feel differently, then I'm going to vibrate at a different way, but I might not be getting external results because I'm not putting that effort outwardly, but when I do put that effort out externally into what seems to be reality, those results come in faster because it's like a skill set. It's like you were talking about with the effortless effort. It's about flow. And when you're in flow and you're able to just, it feels like everything just divine happens and everything aligns right. And because you're prepared, the sports player that is getting ready to that wants to be in the championship, they practice every day for that, whether they get to the championship or not. But when they get to the championship, they've developed a skill set to such degree that they're qualified to be in the championship. Now, if they just sat around, they're like, well, one day I'm going to be, I don't know if it would ever happen. Right. And I think that happens for all of us. I was talking to my dad a few weeks ago about how they finally made it. He doesn't understand us spiritual people, right? Because we just float around and we travel everywhere. And he's like, how do you guys you just go and things just come in and, and I'm like, yeah. But then like I tried to explain to him, I said, but you strategized about working this job for X amount of years. So when you got to this age, you would have some lump sum of income that you were going to live on the rest of your life. And he said, yeah, that's true. And I was like, look, you manifested it. It just took you 40 years because that was your mindset. That was your mindset and your strategy to get there. Now, if you would take that money and you would invest in a business or you do some different things, whatever, you could have maybe got there sooner, but that wasn't your gameplay. And a lot of the people that I've met, walking this walk, it's the same thing. It's what do you put your energy into, and energy is the way that I'm starting to define it, Larkin, is energy is taking consciousness and putting it into reality. Taking the unmanifested into the manifested.
And that's the power of focus. Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. And intentionality and, all those things,
So, yeah, I want to take a moment and say hi to Ward and hi to Smoking Monkey Media.
Yeah.
Chris.
Yeah, I'm totally. I was giggling at Smoking Monkey Media's comment there.
Yeah. So yeah, I want to respond to you and to their comments. Yeah, instant spirituality without added hippie bullshit. Yeah, absolutely. Word like that too. Susie and I call Word our poet. He's on here with a beautiful comment. Before I forget, though, I just wanted to kind of support what you were saying, Chris, in just saying, yeah, I mean, this leads us into the expectation for the instant gratification versus, for those of you just logging on, we're talking today about really a healthier, new, lighter way of assessing your year before, because our egoic mind and our logical, practical mind wants to assess how did we do the year before and what can we do better. But the old ways of doing that don't work. And you have to go beyond just the intellectual part of it. Hello, Miranda. Welcome. And we're actually not doing readings today. We are having conscious conversation, and today we're talking about moving into 2024. So if you're wanting a pregnancy reading, you might want to just hop on Facebook and see if anybody's on there doing live free readings. But anyway, so I think it's important, though, if you guys want a new outcome for the next year, to be able to really, ascend your ego. Now, we don't have to, I see you're saying to ascend and slend your ego. That's okay, Miranda. Miranda, sorry. You can always join us next Monday if you want. But it's not so much, and this goes into other topics, and Ward, I am going to get to your beautiful comment there. But I think we need to look at ego not so much as negative. I think as the New Age started building a few decades ago, we really got into, slay the ego, and the ego's evil. The ego isn't evil. The ego doesn't need to be slayed. The ego will never be slayed. The ego makes you human. And if you don't have it, you're dead, okay, or you're brain dead. The ego is like having, I did years and years of samurai training. And when we first started, I mean, all I had to do was pick up the sword and I would cut myself or cut something. I mean, it's that sharp. You don't think it's like that, but it's like that. They send you out to cut grass or toss newspaper in there, and you're supposed to be slicing it a certain way. And you don't, you're not careful. You chop your clothes off. I mean, it's crazy how dangerous these swords are. And it always shocked me. And for years I was doing that with these swords. And what I found is that the ego is like a samurai sword, not just any old sword, a samurai sword, because it can be your greatest tool, and you can literally slice paper to a T if you know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, it's very dangerous. And that's really how the ego is. The ego is synonymous with mind, and it was intended to be a tool for your conscious mind. And then your brain is a tool that makes your mind able to be used while you're human, right? Your brain is the human, real physical part. The mind is that part in between. And then you've got your consciousness, which is eternal. So this is really important. So I do think there's still this reputation of, smash the ego, kill the ego, defeat the ego. Well, that's what the ego wants. So as you try to slay and defeat your ego becomes more powerful. It makes your ego so happy because it's getting you to do what it wants. So actually mastering the ego, which is why, I took on martial arts in the first place. It's through the mental, emotional, and physical discipline of martial arts. If you don't let it take you the ego direction, it teaches you self-control. It teaches you to be present. It teaches you to be in control of yourself, which gives you the greatest power. And so this means when you're being bullied or you're in an argument, you don't necessarily do what society is saying, which be the loudest. You learn what a lot of the great masters of non-reaction taught. Non-reaction. Through the non-reaction, you gain your own internal power. And then if you allow, today I really wanted to talk about everything being in process. So we'll talk more about that next week. But it allows things to go through their natural process that Chris was talking about a half an hour ago. And when you have the self-control to do that and make your powerful choices along the way, what happens is those situations have a way of taking care of themselves. You get the universe behind you, and things pan out. And I've got lots of stories about that, but I'm not going to babble on. But I think that's important to really comment on as well. Let's see. Ward, I've not forgotten about your beautiful writing up there. We're going to get to that in just a minute. Let's see. The samurai philosophy is to merge with the katana as an extension of the body. Exactly. So when you learn the skills, that makes it all the more easy, right? Chris, if you don't mind, I don't want to neglect Ward's comment up here. We'll do this first. He always sends us a beautiful poem or something, and I don't know if all of it's on there. Wait a minute.
It cuts off right towards the end there, it looks like.
Yeah, I thought there was more to that, but yeah. So let's see. The stars appeared as one, sometimes two, and sometimes even 3 nights in a row. The moon disappeared until the sun appeared. but the sun set in the night. When the moon returned after the day, she had not a round shape, but a smile. I still wonder why the sunlight shines here, while the moonlight disappears. And I, who always thought that the moon and the sun were far apart, but the moon became a sun, and the sun became a moon. And I, who always thought that the moon and the sun became I. Love it. That's beautiful, Ward. And you know what? I don't know if you I don't know anything about what you do. I don't know if you have a books, maybe you publish these things or you write and you share them, but you always share these lovely pieces of writing with us. And if you'd like to share them here, if you have something that you're sharing or selling or whatever, feel free to share it with people, because you come on and you contribute these beautiful writings with us, and it really adds to our broadcast, and it brings in a different energy, a new energy to what we're sharing. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
He continued on as well.
Yes. Did you find it?
Yeah, at the bottom now it says, but the moon became a sun.
There it is. Go ahead, Chris.
But the moon became a sun, and the sun became a moon. And I, who always thought that the moon and the sun became lost in the emptiness of space, but they simply switched, taking each other's place.
Oh, you're welcome, Ward. Absolutely. We love what you're sharing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you know what that reminds me of too, in our discussion, that just to remind everybody, like, nature is the great teacher. Mm-hmm. We are nature. We may not like it. We may think we're not. You may feel like, oh, you're safe in a city or a suburb. But the truth is, guys, we have just created an illusion, all these little fake setup things that are, bigger and separate us more from nature than like a little, Native American, community. And so we feel like, oh, okay, we're separate from nature. And many of us are trying very hard to be. But the truth is, you are nature.
Right.
And in a heartbeat, in any sort of natural event, all of this could just be blown away.
And well, in the artificial, yeah.
Right? Yeah.
In the artificial reality, what we would call a city, right? You want to talk about safety. Well, if there's no food in the grocery store, how safe are you really going to be? How abundant are you going to be? If your cash can't purchase you food, how are you going to survive in the city? I mean, and that's, Counting Crows song, they paved over paradise to put in a parking lot, always rings so true to me when I'm very lucky. I live on 20 acres, so I'm surrounded by nature, and it keeps me very grounded, but it's a different energy. It's not motivating. I have people come here and they're just like, I just feel like sitting here and watching the birds. And I'm like, that's what you should be doing while you're here. Like the bustle and the high vibration, and you always happen to be out doing things and going places and meeting people and networking and doing all the things in the city. Like, we created that infrastructure as human beings. That's not natural in many aspects of it.
No, it's not. And actually, the high vibration is guys, the higher vibration is in the being. Mm-hmm. Right? We can have high energy, busy thought type, but this is again where I feel like every broadcast I try to bring this up, and I feel like I have every right to do this because I've been a part of this coaching industry thing for well over 10 years. And I've been coaching for well over 15 years. And I fell for a lot of this stuff too, guys. I wanted to use the tools of coaching. Hi, Leona, welcome. I wanted to use the tools of coaching to help spiritual people or conscious women build relationships and build their businesses and be successful and get free of the struggle of money, because that really does make life so difficult, right? When you're struggling for money, there's so many things you can't do. Just makes life hard. Even, you got the best intentions. And so I wanted to coach women to, not women that were just money hungry or power hungry, but that really were like I had been, where they were struggling to rescue animals and be with their pets and help people. And they were very, just very generous. Those types of mindsets always had trouble making money. And I was trying to help them transform that. And what I found was, not only with the tools I being taught, subconsciously, because I'm very into neuroscience, subconsciously programming the wrong way and attracting people that I thought were a good match for me that were not. But I was finding that as my clients were making success, and I want to quote this here because I taught about making money for years. Money does not change you. Money does not change you. Money brings out who you are. It gives you a different level of freedom. Okay. Well, we don't want to hate money, because so a lot of people that don't have money and struggle with money hate money. We don't want to hate money either, because then that puts us in a place of having even less and struggling. Money is not evil, guys. Money is neutral. Money is neutral. You can have money and be a good-hearted person. The problem is that it's very hard in the coaching industry with people teaching other people to do it, because a lot of times all they're doing is they're taking your money to teach you a blueprint that doesn't always work for you, honestly. And I got trapped in, I spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching. And it turned out what I really wanted to do and the best way for me to make money didn't have anything to do with any of the ways they taught me. And those coaches didn't care about me at all. Now, there are a few that do. But what I found was a lot of them were even abusing, mentally and emotionally abusing the women were abusing women in these coaching programs. And I was horrified. And it became very, like a lot of groups of women are, very catty and trod each other down. And a lot of my clients, as soon as they would start to make success or have relief, their true selves came out. And I thought to myself, oh my God, no, I'm not doing this. So that's why I completely left that. So it's not like Leona says, sometimes I'd rather have no money and have a happy, healthy life and peace. Let's see, because it causes sadness sometimes. Okay. So yeah, so money doesn't really have anything to do with sadness or goodness or badness or any of that. It's neutral. But if your experience is lack of money or people with money being unkind to you, then our perception can become money is bad or money changes people, but it doesn't. It brings out who we are. Money is just a tool. And if we don't have it and we struggle with it and we don't know how money works, then we suffer. If our heart is bigger than our wallet, we suffer. Mm-hmm. Okay. And when we're like hating money, we're not any better off. So the best thing to do is really what you suggested, Leona, is, and what you've talked about today, Chris, is that, first of all, being present, which is what those people coming to your property are doing. Mm-hmm. You're actually going to have a highest vibration, guys, when you're in the now. Okay. When you come up in your vibration, but it's not always about doing. And it really has nothing to do with money. The money comes when we shift our vibration and we let go of our resistance around money. So even if we're not conscious of it, if we have subconscious negative beliefs about money or negative experiences that we associate with money, then that will be a money block. And like it or not, guys, in our society, you have to match your lifestyle to that. So if you want to just say, okay, I don't want to have anything, I want to live the simplest life and not need money, that's fine. You can be every bit as joyful and abundant and fulfilled and peaceful without money, mm-hmm. as long as you're living a lifestyle that matches that. Yep. if you have goals, dreams, and desires, such as I do, of wanting to do animal rescue and offer donations and give people gifts, then you have to have money. Okay, so you can match that up, and it really has nothing to do with the money. It has everything to do with, are you getting into that 95% of your mind you're not aware of and creating transformation? And don't forget that. You're only, all of you making comments here are making it off of your 5% of your mind that you're conscious of, that you're aware that you're thinking. But the part of your mind that is running your life, that is creating your outcomes, is the 95% you're not aware of. And that's why being present, bringing things into awareness is so important. Okay. So yes, money is a false concept of value. Exactly. And so what we have to do is that's why money comes from, it shows up in our life according to a reflection of our inner selves. So when we can align our vibration and frequency with our intention, with something that matches us. This is why I tell my clients, do what you love. This is why, guys, I ditched, all the money I was making teaching corporate clients who were, paying me a lot of money. And a couple of years ago, I went ahead and I cut all my prices way down, so much so that if I don't get my other business going, I'm going to have to quit and do another job. I mean, I literally just ditched it all, and chose an avenue that is not known for making money, and started all over completely. And it wasn't because I don't believe in money. I do believe there's nothing wrong with making money. There's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. It really doesn't matter either way. It's your choice. It's up to you. You can find the same peace, joy, and abundance regardless. But for me, my goals and visions require me to be able to bring in that money if I want to put it towards the causes that I want. And so that's really just a personal choice and preference. And you just have to get to know yourself and align with what you are wanting, and really get over because the judgment of money, guys, the negative judgment of money is also a programming in our subconscious mind that has been going on for generations. And it is encouraged by societies, by the wealthy running societies, in order to keep the majority of people under a certain part of financial level, so that there is not a level of financial power there, so they can keep the power circles together. Okay. And so if you have a negative idea towards money, you are just coming from that brainwashed place. By the same token, you don't want money to be everything, right? So there's a balance there, and really it's your own personal preference.
Right.
And that's really important to keep in mind.
A good book is in all this is Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. It's we all know these people that they have it seems like they have this big life and they travel and they do all this stuff and whatever, and then a few years later something happens and they're destituted. Why? Because they were living beyond their means, and it's how they internalize it. How do you keep yourself distracted? Larkin was talking about being, and if you can be in any situation and stay in your center, no matter, there's a story wanting to bubble up here about a saying about the guy that always said maybe. Oh, you're so lucky, you're so blessed, and oh, maybe, and then some tragedy would happen, and then, oh, that's too bad, and well, maybe, and every time, things just kept progressing, and that's that at least for my example of how I've gone through life, has been the case. When I wanted to go above and beyond where I was at, I created strife and struggle. When I accepted where I was at and started with what I had, or what I have, and used that in the way from here to get to there, it manifests a lot simpler. Things just show up, all of a sudden, the clients show up, or whatever it is, whatever it is that you're wanting to do. I mean, social media is full of it right now, trying to, get into AI and just make buttloads of money. All these kids are making buttloads of money. And what are they doing? They're spending it on things that aren't enhancing their lives or their well-being. It keeps them distracted, keeps them in where they're at. And that's going to work for them for a little bit. But if they don't invest in themselves, their time, their money, their energy, when that goes away, because as Larkin said, everything grows, everything shifts. When the trend is over, they're going to be right back at rock bottom, because they didn't grow. I had a photographer friend that taught me photography, and yeah, absolutely false programming there, Smoking Monkey. That taught me photography, and he was a film photographer, and all he would talk about, the good old days when we worked in the dark room, and it was all about photography then, and the digital age was coming out, and the digital age was coming out, and he didn't want to learn digital editing. He just refused. And this guy was a phenomenal photographer, wonderful portrait photographer. I mean, the guy was awesome. But it came down to it. He got to the age where no one wanted to work with him or pay him anything, because he didn't know the digital editing. So he wasn't able to do the effects that all of the younger generation they started with. And so, like, he really struggled to keep his business alive because of that. Now he met me, and I had a talent agency, and I was learning photography for many years prior to that, but never had a teacher, so I was learning a lot from him. But I also knew digital editing. So my frustration with him was having to edit all his photos because that was the part I didn't like doing either. I liked taking the photos, but that was our trade-off. That was the way we were able to work together to get the best results, working as a collaboration, where we were able to get more. Yeah, you're always in a state of adaptation and evolution. I believe that too, Smoking Monkey. What a powerful thing from Leona there, huh? You want to talk about that, Larkin?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because this broadcast, like, they talk about going with the flow, I mean, it never goes the way we intend, right? It takes on a life of its own, which is supposed to. We want you guys to come on and be a part of the conversation, and we take it the way it needs to. To survive is to adapt. Absolutely. That is so true. I love Leona says the world should be watching this. And that reminds me of, it's so true. There's so many things that people need to hear about. And one of the things that Chris and I talked about prior to doing this was, we want to talk about things that might be, maybe not in a politically correct, controversial way, but in ways that most people go against most people's programming, because we want to help everybody kind of wake up to some of the things that we've discovered that were really harsh realities that I find people don't want to talk about. And it's like taking the red pill or the blue pill. And really, the coaching industry helped me discover this a lot, go down the rabbit holes, because as I, just as I started making all this money and was financially free and had all this great stuff going on, I was like, oh my God, I can do it this way, or I can go back and make the same money again, this other way, and start all over. Because again, guys, my reason for making the money is because of what I want to contribute, because I know I need it for part of my vision. It has nothing to do with me having money, which there'd be nothing wrong with that if I just wanted the money, but that's not me. But when I found out how deep the hole actually goes, and why you guys always hear me say the 95% of your mind that you're unaware of, that is the most vital part of this. Because if you're not aware of the 95% of your mind that has been programmed, that is not what you think you believe, but it's what you're not aware of. It's what causes you to not get out of your comfort zone. It's what creates the fears that block you, what creates your resistance, what create even just things like, people hating money or having a bad idea about money. That right there blocks you from whatever other potential you want to use the money as a tool. It blocks you. Because it is a tool and that's all it is. So why should the people trying to make people believe money is bad have the money as a tool and you don't? I mean, do you ever notice that? Do you notice the people doing the animal rescue or the child rescue or the education? They're all the people without the money, aren't they? They're all down there in the nitty gritty, right? And so, you can turn those tables, but it takes a lot of interpersonal work. And one of the things that, if you're looking at what was my year in 2023 and what do I want moving forward, really taking that acceptance and surrender we were talking about and being willing to, are you willing to get out of your comfort zones this year? You can't transform without getting out of your comfort zones, because everything you envision and you want is out of that. Smoking Monkey's talking about, false programming. Yeah, it's all false programming, which is why being somewhere like on Chris's property and taking time to just be, which is why my main theme in coaching is remember who you are, right? I'm always aligning with, okay, who am I? What are my gifts? Other people's opinions are none of your business. Those types of things are important, and they probably are going to take practice for you to apply in your lives. Because no matter how much we may believe other people's opinions don't matter, we make our decisions based off of that. We feel mental, emotional, and social pressure based off of that. It's ingrained. It's our survival. So to override that, this is where we have to learn to use our mind as a tool. We have to journal. We have to spend time in silence. We have to discover what true meditation is or not. I know people that are very aligned with themselves that are atheists and agnostic. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't really matter, does it?
No.
We are all source. So it doesn't really matter whether you believe it or not. Some of these people are the kindest, most generous, most spiritual, authentic people you could ever meet.
I would challenge they believe in something greater than themselves, though.
Exactly. And to, to survive is to adapt, guys. Adapting, I hear clients say to me all the time, why am I the one that had to adapt in this situation? Well, guess what? When you're the one that has to adapt, you're the one that's going to get the wisdom. You're the one that's going to get the inner strength. You're the one that's going to gain the confidence, because confidence does not come through thinking about it, writing about it, talking about it, trying to figure it out. Confidence comes through choice and action. And if you don't step out of your comfort zone and make different choices than you've made before, you don't build the confidence and you don't get the change, right? Leona, yeah, you're still trying to figure out who you are. And you know what? It comes by stripping away the layers and being more and more authentic. And that means making the tough choices that are not necessarily what that programming that we've been talking about is. And discovering that on our own, because you will start to feel more and more yourself It comes from not believing your thoughts and sitting quietly and letting your intuition speak to you. And it comes a little bit at a time.
I was gonna say, it's always an evolving thing.
Yeah.
It's if we think we know who we are, we're an ego and we've created an archetype. And that archetype might work for a while, but life will come to challenge us to grow beyond that.
And I think also, guys, I want to get to, I like this. I've got a few other good comments here.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Robin. Welcome. Remember, being uncomfortable is uncomfortable. Absolutely. Yes. This is so, so important. It's okay to be uncomfortable.
I do want to take a moment, though, to wish Robin a happy birthday. It's her birthday. So.
Oh, happy birthday, Robin.
Thanks for taking time out with us on your birthday.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. That's wonderful. But yeah, I think that's such wisdom there too, guys, is why do we not want to get out of our comfort zone? Because it's uncomfortable. And we would rather stay uncomfortable in a bad situation than go through the discomfort of moving into something less familiar. And so, that reminds me, Robin, of a saying, make the unfamiliar familiar and the uncomfortable comfortable. And that's what happens when you go through transformation. I do want to, Smoking Monkey was talking about to understand money, play Monopoly. I love that. It's a good point. Let's see. I'm going to bring Ward's comment up here. Do you mind reading that, Chris? I'm going to stop my dog from barking.
No. I always try to understand the concept of involvement, and I always try to realize that our reality is truth. And then I come to the idea that maybe a presence, truth, is just the distance of being unreachable. And so our existence is an absence of our connection to be here, the realization of all our different realities. Very nice.
Yeah, and that's a liberating point too. We can switch realities anytime we want. And a great way to start doing that, if you're not in practice doing that, is to just simply, ask yourself, okay, who would I be? How would I feel? What would I think, say, or do if I was, and use your imagination, which a lot of adults have trouble doing now because we're trained not to have that. We're trained to get rid of our imagination so we can be brainwashed. But, who would I be? Let's say, if I was living the life of my dreams today, and I was getting up and having my morning, and I like to ask my clients to do this type of thing for just a day or two, or even an hour, however long they can do it and keep it up without resistance coming up to create a practice. Just say, what if when I got up tomorrow morning, everything was exactly the way I wanted it to be? And for 3 hours, I was going to just imagine that it was. Can you keep that imagination? Can you sustain that imagination that long? How would it feel? What would you say? What would you do? What would your mood be? What would you say to people? Would you call somebody and complain like maybe you normally do and talk about all your problems? Or would you call and talk about your ideas? Or say, hey, let's meet for a walk, right? Because when you start inserting this practice a tiny bit at a time, you begin to create that mindset. And remember, it's actually the reverse. You create a reality that is what you already believe it to be. So if you are reiterating what you've already had, what has been in the past, and how to fix it, how to make it different, you're going to stay in that place. If you want a new reality, you have to think, feel, be, talk, act, believe as though it is that other way. And you know what? I'm not saying do that 24/7. That's really not practical to ask someone to do that right off the bat. But you can start practicing it a few minutes at a time or an hour at a time, right? I think that's important.
Or go on retreat and dedicate some time to just that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
Let's see. Trying to get to everybody's comments here. I speak and think in the truth of my faith, just as you believe in the truth of what you speak. People do not always understand that faith is not just religion, but is about believing in the truth and good in the world. Yeah, and I would go so far as to say, faith really is an action. So like, for example, I always suggest to my clients that they believe no matter what, things are always working out for them, because they are. Things are always working out for us. The universe is behind you, whether, the universe is behind you all the time. So the problem is that if you believe something that you don't want, the universe is behind you. If you believe people hate you and they shun you all the time, the universe supports that, because the universe doesn't take what you want or don't want. The universe takes what you believe, because you are the universe, and you manifest who and what you are. So I love this comment because it beliefs are repeated thoughts. And, for me, if you generalize faith, it means what you believe and trust in. And that trust is a part of that connection with, as my reading clients would relate to, their spirit team and their spiritual reality and their angels. For a very maybe left-brained, more mind-oriented person, it's simply okay, believing things are going to work out and there's good in the world. And if I do the right thing, it's eventually going to come back to me. It doesn't matter what avenue you choose, but that faith in things working out for you is very important.
Yes. Well, it's a consistency of vibration for the things that haven't manifested yet, right?
Absolutely. Well said. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the question is, what do you really believe in? Because I have clients all the time that'll say, well, I believe in this and that, and I believe this is working, but it hasn't shown up yet, which of course, damages their faith in it, right? And the truth is that if something hasn't happened yet, my friends, which leads us to the in process that we wanted to talk about today, it just hasn't happened yet. And Chris, you said something interesting when you were talking about your parents a while back, and you were talking to your father about what he had created, saying certain things took them 40 years. Guys, I hate to burst your bubble, but again, after being in the coaching industry more than 15 years, people are selling you lies. And I have a lot of colleagues that are coaches. I'm not putting them under the bus. I'm just telling you, in order to make money, and this is the problem when people start making money and they haven't had money before, and then they get in a role of making money. They get hungry for the money. And that's where the problem comes in. It's not the money that's the problem. It's that they will then sell you anything to make the money. Okay, which is, here I am. Obviously, I'm not one of those people. I've jumped out of it and I'm still struggling to get my business going the new way. But the truth is that the world is not immediate gratification. And believe it or not, there were some business owners a few decades back that started, they owned some big, what do I want to call them, like department stores. And they decided that if they got the trend going of consumerism, that they would have constant influx of money. This is where our society went from taking good care of your things, having well-made items that would last you 40 years that I still have that belong to my grandparents that are like new, that are 60, 70 years old, to throw things away. Every season you have to buy a new outfit, switch up the fashion and the decorating every year, so you have to buy the new trend. Guys, this was intentional. And it was intentional along with the immediate gratification thing. It is brainwashing and it is bullshit. And the sad part about it is my friends' children are affected by this. They are affected by this. I have friends and colleagues and clients all the time that say, I'm such a terrible parent. My kid wants this and this and this and this for Christmas because it's the new version. And 6 months ago, the last version came out. You know what, guys? This is why if I had kids, and people say, oh, if you had kids, it would be different. No, it wouldn't, because I know myself. They wouldn't be exposed to all that. They would be out, their foundation would be out in nature, not TV, not social media, so that they could be objective. Because this consumerism, if you get the younger generation stuck in it, you can get money off of them when they're adults. And that's, so many of my coaching clients had money literally like I did, stolen from them for years. And so just be careful. Yeah, if it's you, it's up to you. Right. Leona says, if it's to be, it's up to me. I love that. Absolutely. But this, guys, is so important, because the things that people believe they need to be happy are not what will make them happy. And Chris was saying that a long time ago. But back to my point, manifesting isn't going to happen for you overnight. Chances are it can, if it was already in process. But please understand, as I'm closing out the year with my coaching clients, I am reminding them, and we've been working on for weeks now, everything is in process. Life is always a process. It never ends. And so the ego likes to see things as, I want this. This is the result. The only result is getting what I want. No, the only result is not getting what you want or not getting what you want. Because people give up on their goals and dreams or the outcomes they want because they judge when they should receive them. And that depends on so many things. Are you doing the things that you need to do for those things to come into your reality? Are you making the changes that you need to make in the choices and the actions and getting out of your comfort zones that are necessary to get what it is you're envisioning? Here's one for you. Are you even envisioning something that would really bring you what you think it would bring you? Because if it's not, and you're in alignment, the universe is going to be guiding you to something better. So don't assume that because things do not seem to be working out the way you think they should to get what you want, that it's a failure, that you're not going to get what you want. That's not true. So many of the things that I envisioned and wanted that were in my heart and soul, guys, they took decades to come. Decades. So, they come at the time that your vibration is ready for them. And some of that is up to you, and some of that is universal divine timing, but it's a partnership. But please don't give up. Just because things don't appear to be working out the way you want, believe me, you can only see a fraction of it. They are working out for you all the time. And usually it's adjustments that you have to make to shift the coin for you. It's almost always in your power.
Absolutely. And yeah, my son finally asked for a laptop, Larkin.
Yeah.
And the laptop that he's used is his whole life was one that I bought before he got married, or before he was even born. So it was like, I mean, the keys are falling out of it. It was like, yeah, it's time to upgrade. I totally understand. But yeah, it is a programming thing. It is a conditioning thing, and it's something that I've always spoken with my son about. Always, and if you're always feeding that beast, that's an addiction. Whatever it is, technology, fame, fortune, money, power, whatever it is, it's a type of addiction. And he's witnessed myself with addictions. He's witnessed other family members with some serious drug addictions. So we've had to have that talk about addictions. And even as tech, we've said, you not being able to take care of yourself. He's 13. If you can't take care of yourself, if you can't remind yourself you need to eat, and you need to hydrate, and you need to clean yourself, and go to the bathroom, and that is a form of addiction. And it's up to you to be able to gauge that, to monitor that, and then shift the thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and so that's not a thing. So in our house, it's I don't have a lot of rules. I don't take that type of thing, because I want him to be able to express himself and be himself. Of course, keep him safe. But if he's asked to do something, he's expected to do it. If he doesn't do it, then there's consequences to that. And the consequences is he loses his things that he doesn't like, or that he likes.
They like it.
That, which would be his tech, right?
Sounds like a good consequence. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and it's just really that simple. I mean, I don't argue with him. I just take power chords, and okay, let's go for a walk. Like
right.
Let's go do something. And so he does what he's asked, when he's asked, because that's the standard. And
the parents really have to set the standard. I mean, the adults have to, and there's a major lack of that in our world today. And the problem is if, both my parents are teachers. I've been a teacher for years. And the problem is that children need structure in order to feel secure. That's actually in my graduate work in psychology. One of the most fascinating things to me was learning that child development and how we actually need that external structure from our adults around us in order to establish our own internal structure, an internal, set of consequences, cause and effect. If we don't learn that by it being imposed on us, doesn't mean it has to be imposed in a bad way, but children actually, they act like they resist the structure, but they actually crave it. They need it. And so, you see a lot of lack of that today, and you see that coming out now in people becoming adults. And, the sad part about that is, it's not just about how they behave towards us or others. It's about how must they feel as individuals? Because when you have people that are, don't have their own sense of structure or security, yes, you'll see that in their treatment of others, but how do they really feel? Right. So we have to, in old societies, like, in my grandfather or my parents' day, they welcomed and respected that structure. They saw the importance of it, which is now termed as old fashioned. But the truth is, I even remember as a kid liking that structure, wanting and respecting the importance of it, because this is one of the ways we can all live together. If we don't have a cohesive structure to hold us all together, that's difficult. Now, we can argue different lines and rules. I'm just talking about basic individual human development for structure. And really what is most natural is natural responsibility, right? So for example, with my grandparents, it was easy because if my grandmother didn't pick the berries or the things in the garden, then they didn't have the jelly or the jam or the applesauce or whatever to eat, right? So there was a natural consequence because she had to do it as a part of a contributing member to the family. In the world we have today, where it's over consumerism, immediate gratification, I feel that the kids are really begrudged that. They don't have that opportunity because they don't have to. It's more about being entertained. It's not about the fulfillment that actually comes from doing the things that contribute. And really, guys, we get our confidence and our fulfillment from doing what needs to be done, not always. I hear people say all the time, I'm bored, not just kids, adults, I'm bored. What can we do for entertainment? I'm never bored. Now, I have never in my life been bored.
Well, you got a crazy schedule. You're always going.
I do. It's wild. But other than lunging a horse, honestly, and if it's my thoroughbred, it can't be boring. I'm never bored, guys, because bored is a state of mind. But it's a matter of, when you're constantly either comfortable being or you are doing something that is contributing. I mean, for me, it's even fun. Like I love to do artwork. I love to crochet. I love to dance. But those are things that are internally fulfilling for me that I also feel can serve. I dance at nursing homes and things like that for people. I teach dance classes. there's a contributing factor there. And I think a lot of our dissatisfaction comes from not having that. So if you guys are looking at what you want your 2024 to be, and you feel like there's gaps in your joy and your fulfillment, or you're bored, start to look for some of these things like you were talking about, Chris. Like you said, you say to your son, let's go take a walk.
Right.
You know, that
go volunteer,
boring.
go pick up
Right.
trash. I mean, there's always something to do.
Once it becomes, he goes back to Robin's comment, once it becomes familiar, guys, they're going to like it. It's okay. They may hate it at first. And I don't just mean kids, I mean adults too. Once it becomes your norm, it takes a different place in your life. Oh, we got lots of great comments here. Programming, yes. Monkey see, monkey do. That's right. Let's see. Yeah. I love this comment. What are your thoughts on this, Chris? Remove traditionalism and civilization's collapse. Absolutely. And by the way, Smoking Monkey, I think that is exactly what is intentionally happening. They are intentionally, there are certain generations now that are intentionally being wiped off the map. They don't realize that they are. Us older generations see it. They don't. Intentionally, so that the traditions and the awareness that those of us that are middle-aged and older are aware of can be wiped out. And this allows for what? Complete reprogramming for new goals to restructure and control society. Right. Period. It's as simple as that. It's not that hard. That's not a, I don't know, what do they call it? Conspiracy theory. That is what's happening. And we're all falling for it. I mean, I fell for it and didn't even know it while I was doing all my coaching training, which is why I failed on that. I don't want to be a part of that.
Well, I think that's why the resurgence as well of going back to the old ways, you know, the indigenous ways, to help us find balance. You know, I mean, it is about duality, you know, and it's like one foot in the past, one foot in the future, while your center's in the present, right? Yeah. Because you know, there's a lot of experience that's truth in itself, you know, like, you know, to live as a mystic, right, is to live through direct experience and not necessarily through a sect of teachings or, you know, anything like that, but allowing everything that comes into your awareness to be able to compare and contrast, to practice with, you know, is this for me? You know, does this make sense for me now? You know, we were talking about the sweating earlier, and, you know, to do a sweat lodge, a ceremony, it's beautiful, you know, you know, is everybody going to be able to do that? No. But there's modern ways that they could react that way. And, you know, if there was a large, you know, I think of this, the big steam rooms, you know, everybody's at the gym, and they're steaming together, you know, like now if they're like talking about, you know, something and they're collaborating, you know, maybe that's, you know, a little more in line with that. But, you know, there are ways that we learn through our evolution that do make it a little easier, maybe, or process, you know, a little easier. But, you know, like these things, you know, they make life a little easier, right? Because everything's in our hand and we can reach out and contact. You know, you go without this a week and you realize how awkward it is just to show up at people's houses like you used to as a kid. You know, you know, because we're so used to pre-planning it.
But that's taking away. See, that's taking away. I don't mean to interrupt, but I've got to insert this. I watch people do this at the barn all the time. Mm-hmm. They'll walk down to get their horses. And I have a rule. When I pull in the driveway of the barn, mm-hmm. I turn my radio off. Mm-hmm. And I do have my phone on me. I'm walking horses all the time, 1,000-pound animals. I always keep it on me at the barn because I'm often in contact with other people on the property. And if I were to fall or I was with somebody that got, you know, knocked over or trampled, or a horse got hurt, I don't want to have to walk 10 or 15 minutes to get help, or maybe I can't if it's me.
Right.
So I always have that phone on me. And for that, I'm so grateful.
Right.
But, I'm not playing music when I'm there. I'm not, sometimes I'll edit broadcasts if I'm there late at night alone, and I want to listen to the broadcasts. But other than that, I see people, they can't just walk in nature. They have to be on their phone, or their friends aren't there. And so they're uncomfortable. So they're on their phone.
Mm-hmm.
And there is an internal growth and confidence and different way you handle yourself when you don't have a crutch, when you're there alone. I mean, just try it sometime. Take yourself out to a movie alone. Go sit at a restaurant alone and eat. Just try it. It's so good for you. And nowadays that's so hard for people to do. Why? Because again, this goes back to, we care about what other people think of us. Why? What's the worst that can happen? People are going to see you sitting at a table alone and think you're a loser. Why? For me, that means I'm perfectly comfortable and confident sitting alone at a table. I don't need to look like I'm busy or talking to someone on my phone. I can just be there. And that is such an important level of confidence and being with yourself to have, that we've really kind of taken away from us with all this. But you're right, Chris, they're great tools. But it's like too much of a good thing. If you're drinking too much chocolate, like I'm drinking cryo brew today.
Oh yeah, that's some good stuff.
It is so good. And I just learned how to make it right because I was using the French press wrong. Last night I was like, this cannot be right, because my sister made it for me right. It was really good. And I made it right last night. And I'm like, oh, so now I'm like on a chocolate high. But the truth is, guys, too much of a good thing. It starts running you. And as we round up in the next few minutes here, I want to remind everybody that the focus of this broadcast and next week's is to help set you up for success, whatever that means for next year. For me, that means that we recognize the process. As I went over with my clients the past couple of weeks, it's not necessarily about, okay, maybe you said, I'm going to make $1 million this year, or I'm going to be financially free. I'm going to meet the love of my life and I'm going to lose 30 pounds. Or, for some of my clients this year, like for me, it was simplify. I'm going to simplify. And then you go back and you reassess, like my clients, and you're like, oh my God, I failed again. I'll do better this year. I'm going to try these same things next year. And I just, you beat yourself up. What good does that do? Nothing. Look at what was the process that is happening for you beneath those intentions. So for me, I didn't get as simple things. My life is simplified as I wanted. Chris can attest to that. My life is crazy. My schedule is insane. But you know what? The foundations for the simplification that I needed revealed themselves. I would not have been able to just simplify this year because I had things I needed to adjust within me, in my life, choices that I have to make of things that I need to eliminate, that I did not make, that I was not maybe ready to make last year. So did I fail in simplifying this year? Absolutely not. It happened in process, and I'm exactly where I need to be for that to happen this year. But did that process start? Absolutely. And so I see it as a success because it is in process. And the things that I accomplished this year and that occurred had to happen for the level and the experience of simplifying that I've actually been envisioning. So apply this to yourselves, because chances are you did achieve and you were given this year what your intentions were. It's just you didn't get the end result yet that you wanted. It's in process. So don't interrupt that process. See it and trust that it's happening for you, and then take it to the next step.
Yeah, the goal is always the path.
Mm.
And what's that quote? Success isn't the destination, it's the journey.
Yeah. This is really what that means.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and it's always evolving on itself, right?
Oh yeah.
And if you don't replace your goal once you've got it, then you're gonna have to repeat it again. In my estimation, because you're always moving forward in some way.
Yeah, we're on a constant path of evolution. And like you said, here's the thing too about, I keep thinking about that 40-year thing you're talking about with your dad and how long manifestations can take. Sometimes by the time they show up, guys, you either don't want them that way and they've already been set in motion, or they come in at the time that you get the version that you really wanted. A lot of times, if you got the thing you wanted or you accomplished it when you initially wanted it, it wouldn't have been the thing that would have brought you the greatest joy, abundance, happiness, peace, whatever. And or you would have had a longer, more turbulent path, because you would have just realized, like I did with my business, oh, yeah, wow, this shows me how people are in this industry. This isn't really what I wanted. I thought these were my dream clients. No, they weren't my dream clients. They weren't even people I wanted to deal with.
Right.
But how could I have known that if I hadn't put in all the pursuit to get there in the first place?
Right.
That's how you learn. That's what you're here to do, is learn. We're not here to have everything perfect exactly the way we want it. And people in our grandparents' generation, even my parents' generation, knew that. They were raised that way. Nowadays, oh my God, the world is falling apart if everything isn't the way you want it every minute of every day.
Right.
Believe it or not, a lot of people are living that way.
And how bored would we be if we could manifest everything we wanted it as fast as we wanted it? Because eventually you'd just be like, there's no strife, there's no challenge, there's no setback, there's no contrast, right? And so it's just, you just get complacent. I mean, and I think that happens a lot too. We were talking about abundance. People are born into a level of financial, what's a good word for it? Well, they've been born into a world where they don't have struggle.
Right.
And money takes care of everything. Well, they soon find out, that they develop addictions, they develop aversions, they develop these things in their lives that money can't solve. And they have a really hard time handling it because they didn't develop that character that challenge creates.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people in, that I was a part of with businesses in the past. We didn't have money, but it's amazing how you can make everything manifest when you really truly believe it. And it's called other people's money.
Yeah, because what you want is, you want to allow, everything is always flowing towards you anyway.
Right.
And so it's in this what we call physical world. There really is no physical world, but in that which we call the physical world, it's about allowing everything that is already coming to you in. And what are you filtering and allowing in? And because what you resist doesn't come to you.
Right.
For whatever reason. But guys, there's nothing wrong with that. And that's one of the points of being human. One of the reasons you come here is to experience that. And so, you can't experience that contrast, that contradiction, that resistance in non-physical. There is no, deception. There is none of that in, our pure conscious form. Everything just is what it is. And we need the ego in order to create these experiences. It's really a gift. I mean, the ego is, it is a gift and something for us to do with it what we choose when we are here. Right. Obstacles are opportunities. The ego creates these obstacles. And so it's up to us to shine through with our consciousness. And so when we talk about remembering who we are, it's remembering who we are on a soul level, remembering who we are, yeah, okay, so, Larkin is this temporary human personality that I have. My true soul shines out through that, but it's not all of who I am, right? And so the human aspects of that personality are just temporary. But when we remember on a soul level who we are, not necessarily who we are with a name or a title, but we can sense who we are. We're generous, or we're forgiving, or we're kind, or it'll show you consciously where you are as you remember that, right? And then you just kind of have to sort that out. What is the human part of you? What is the soul part of you? And which part is shining through what? That's up to you to figure out. But that's one of the things we're here to do. And we can be more authentically ourselves when we do that. So, next week, we'll go in a little more depth as to what you guys can do. But for this week, I'd recommend, what do you need to clear out and clean out from 2023 and beyond that, behind that, in order to create space for moving forward in 2024 for something new? What comfort zones do you have that you're going to need to let go of? What forgiveness maybe do you need to have? What acceptance and surrender needs to happen? Do you just do this in your head or tangibly, or do you like to have practices or rituals or ceremonies, which you don't need, but they can help your mind create sort of a threshold of, now I'm moving forward beyond this point, right? They can help you. The ceremony part or the practice part can help us mentally and emotionally let go and move forward. Let's see here. Yeah, reality, world fell apart in 2001. Today's generation faces challenges like no other. Yeah, I mean, they definitely do, because they're being separated and wiped out from, like you mentioned before, traditions. And traditions were here for a reason. And I want to mention this, and then I'm going to turn it over to Chris, but traditions, which the younger generations are being taught to disrespect, they're being taught that the older generations have destroyed the world for them, having no life experience, knowing nothing about what really went on, being fed false history, and being completely brainwashed like no other generation because of social media. There's a faster, different element of programming. Plus, there's so much of separate the child from the parent going on. And the psychology industry and the education industry is being forced to do this. Literally, I believe they're being bought out to do this. But it is very sad, because one of the beauties of tradition was to help protect the younger generations moving forward, was to teach what the older generations had learned. And a lot of that was how to keep the true, authentic core of society beyond the forces that are programming and controlling, that are trying to manipulate us. It was to help keep the core values of society and the ways to handle things moving, in order to protect themselves to a certain level from that brainwashing and that control. And what's happening now is some of those challenges you're talking about, Smoking Monkey, are the fact that those are being taken away from these younger generations. Thanks to, social media isn't all bad, but because of our devices and social media, and a lot of the TV shows that were played 20 years ago have separated them from appreciating those traditions. And those traditions are actually vital for a healthy core of society and their values. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I honestly believe that is very, very intentional. And it's become very clear to me as I've gotten in behind the scenes with all the coaching stuff.
Well, and it's also been commercialized. I mean, we could look at Christmas.
No, totally.
You know, as an
Yeah.
example of that. You know,
Yeah.
it's not about the dinner. You know, it's not about the gathering as much anymore. It's more about the buying people stuff and the obligations and
Oh, yeah.
that type of thing.
And
So,
the parent will just say, well, this is fine for you, or this doesn't hurt you. And the kid will get on. You know, I see it happen all the time with my friends. The kid will look something up on YouTube that's not even accurate information, not even from a real doctor or a real source. And, oh no, I can mix this and that. I can have this. I can, this and that will cure such and such. How do they know? I mean, I literally, I see, and just because you guys have a piece of paper and a credential and a PhD and all that doesn't mean you know everything. I think that a lot of that's being misjudged as well. That used to be true. It's not so true anymore, but it's still scary when you see these kids not knowing who they're really believing online.
sure.
And maybe it's something serious that someone with, 6 to 8 years of medical training could answer for you, but they're looking something up and they're telling you that doctor doesn't know anything. It's this.
Well, and diagnostics, right? We're all different. So,
Right.
like, I can have a foraging book and I'm out looking at mushrooms and it says it's totally fine, no problem, I can eat it, but my body's allergic to it. So then I have a reaction. Like that is also a part of the experience and awareness and self-awareness of, there's steps and precautions and not just jump in any pool because,
Yeah,
the water looks fine.
exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I hope that this was helpful to you all today and that it gives you something new and refreshing to think about, a new way to look at 2024 other than just, the old fashioned goal setting. Did I accomplish it or did I not?
Right.
And because when we come back next week, we'll take this to the next level and we'll really talk about, okay, I would recommend you guys think about, intuitively, what do you really want this year? In one word, what do you want? Maybe it's peace. Maybe it's joy. Maybe it's security. But understand that can become an intention. And you don't have to know all the details. The universe, your higher self can help you fit that in. But intuitively, where are you leading yourself? Because that's the inkling you really want to go with. But do make sure that you are creating or clearing space for that and looking at what you need to let go of. So there's actually room for that new energy to come into your life.
Awesome. Thank you, Larkin.
All right. Are we good? Are we done, Chris?
Yeah, I'm whole. You whole?
I am. I'm going to change my clothes and go out in the freezing ass cold weather with my horses. And other than my 4 p.m. broadcast, suffer in the cold the rest of the evening. So,
well, I hope you have some hot hands.
Oh my God, those have been saving me. I put them in my feet and my gloves.
Yeah.
So thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for your comments. We really appreciate you being here. And hopefully you'll join us again at our new time at noon next Tuesday.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.